Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the office. It's good to see you, or, well, virtually feel your presence through my camera. Grab yourself a glass of whiskey or apple juice in case I'm not supposed to be drinking whiskey on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, man. I say all sorts of words I'm not supposed to say. Who knows? If you're here, that's because you either subscribed or the YouTube algorithm has, for some reason, brought you here. But today we're going to talk about finances. Okay. Let's get to it. Before I dig in, finances are one of the most important things that you can manage, especially if you're here as a man, right? Uh, if you are a husband or want to be a husband someday, you're going to need to know how to rein in the finances and take account of it. There aren't that many lady. I mean, there are a lot of lady accountants, but most ladies don't like to sit and think about the budget. Most people don't like to sit and think about their household budget. They'd rather just pretend they have lots of money, which is what credit cards are for. And they will find themselves in a lot of trouble. You have to be a little bit of a wet blanket and a little bit of someone to curb your enthusiasm so that your family can prosper in the long term. Part of being a man is kind of being the responsible one. That way your wife can sort of run free within her bounds and not fear any, incoming impoverishment, right? You got a nice little walled garden that you can play in, and you got to build that wall around there to keep everyone in due bounds. Okay. Now, obviously, you're going to try and make that wall as big as possible, but it's got to be there, or else you're all just going to be running around. Okay, let's get to it. There we go. All right. So, how to rule your house, Chapter 1, finances by Men Are Speaking. Now, this is about a series that I'd like to do called How to Rule Your House. There's a video that I see going around that has like Sam Gamgee from Lord of the Rings, and the video says a man's purpose is to serve, and I say no, it isn't. Actually, a man's purpose is to rule. We have the sort of intrinsic interest in the workings of things, right? We will sit and look at a lamppost and wonder why it's the shape it is, and we'll wonder what material properties cause them to choose that type of metal or something like that, right? We'll sit and calculate the wattage used by a street lamp and then figure out how much money that would be to run that street lamp for about 8 hours a night, or 12 hours a day in case it turns on early, and then multiply that by the number of lamps in the city because we're bored and we're waiting for our fries at the latest grease, at the local Greasy Spoon. Okay. We're crazy like that. It's a little nuts. Every guy's got a little bit of tism in him. And that's, the way God made us. So our job is to keep things under control. We're here to rule. Most guys are not really interested in, controlling the minutia of things. We're not really there to control things. We're there just because we are the best suited to rule. Now, how to rule your house, part 1. We're going to talk about finances. Let's go to it. Oh, there we go. Agenda. So why listen to me, right? We're going to start with that. We're going to go to the basics of budgeting. We're going to go to financial decision making, household financial strategies, and career and money philosophy. All right. So let's get into it. So why listen to me? I am one of the rare, and I will brag about this because I'm very proud of it. I came out of college in 2010, which is 2 years into the major financial crisis. If you want to see what that's all about, you can watch the movie Margin Call. I know the Lotus Eaters has a really good review of Margin Call with Dan. Dan is great. Definitely watch Dan. He's worth a subscription right there by himself. But I was born 2 years after that, after that movie, right? And I went to Anne Arundel County. Well, actually, I went to Baltimore County, but my family's in Anne Arundel County. It's very similar, right? And so you'll see that this is a current cost of living map of the United States. Now, that cost of living map of the United States shows that Maryland is pretty dark right in that area. In fact, it's only really topped by Silicon Valley in terms of expenses. I don't know what's going on with this west side of, what is that, Wyoming? No, I don't know what's going on in there. I'll have to go check that out. Anyways, yeah, it's a huge cost of living. Huge cost of living. So high cost of living, right out of the financial crisis. I was in hard mode. But despite the fact that I was in financial hard mode, I was able to get a house at 23 years old, which meant I was only working for like a year or two. I did not get any money from my dad, not for my first house. I ended up having to convince my family to lend me money, gift it to to the bank loan people. Gift it to me later on. But the first house I bought was by myself. I have no debt except for my mortgage. I don't even own I don't have any credit card debt. I have no car debt. I have no student loan debt. I paid that off. I should have put the little picture they sent me. They sent me like a little certificate that I paid off my student loan. I paid my student loan off when I was about 30. So I'd only been working for about 8 years or so when I paid all my student loans off. And I had an embarrassingly large student loan because the school kind of screwed me over. It's a funny story. I had a good scholarship for my 4-year degree. Then the very last year, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try to cram a master's in this, and I'll change my program over to the accelerated master's. Well, they just canceled all of my scholarships and didn't tell me. So half of my student loans came from a single year of education. I would have only had $40,000, only $40,000 in student loans. Instead, I had freaking $80,000. I was paying $800 a month to furnish my student loans, and I managed to pay all that off. I bought a brand new car in 2015. It was a Honda Fit. I love my Honda Fit. I paid that off within about 2 years of me owning it. So I got that debt off my my roster. And I had a major medical bill that happened, which then prompted me to accelerate my career, which pretty much meant jump ship from my current employer and go to another one. Because the current employer, I'd have to like beg on my hands and knees to some jerk. Sorry, I'm going to burn that bridge. I already burned that bridge. Screw him. Yeah, the jerk's over there. I would have to like sit and literally kiss his gold ring to get just a little bit of an adjustment so I could pay for my gallbladder being removed. Jerk. So instead of even reducing myself to that, I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go on an odyssey. I ended up leaving my wife behind, but to go move state for about a year so I can work and basically double my income. But I'll get to that part later. Okay. So there's going to be strategies for how do you get your career going. And what I did to overcome all this stuff. But I'm about to pay my mortgage off at 40. So I'm 35 now, about to turn 36 in October. And I've got about 4 years left on this mortgage, probably. Like if I make the extra payments that I do, that'll be gone. Now, I locked in. Now, my timing is like one of the greatest things. It's a lot of luck, but it's also, I was ready to take advantage of that luck. Rates were down at like 2.25%. And I locked in a 15-year mortgage for the property I'm at right now. And the property I'm at right now, when I put in my offer, and the offer was accepted, that's important. The offer was accepted. The property was appraised at about $40,000 more than what that price I put in was. So I was already positive equity by a lot. And now I check on the Z estimates, and it's gone up like $150,000 from that. So I have a lot. So in other words, if I hadn't jumped onto this thing, I would have been screwed. Because it's like, if another week had passed by, this guy would have wised up to it and jacked his prices up by 40 grand. But I've managed to get in there, and he was desperate to get out and go take care of his family. God bless him. It is what it is. But I managed to get in there at a very low rate, 15-year mortgage. Saves me tons of money. I'm probably paying like 40 grand total over the course of this loan. It's nothing. It's amazing. I love it. Although insurance went up a lot this year, so went up by like $200 a month. Oh well. Win some, lose some, right? I don't take this stuff too bad anymore. But that place I have now is a 32-acre farm in Tennessee, which is about 30 minutes away from a Sam's Club, which is kind of my metric of civilization. Like, can I get bulk food stuff? Which is how I've lived my entire life, right? I've got a decent sized home, 2,000 square foot. And my wife, this is one of my biggest points of pride, is my wife has never had to work. So she's never had to answer to anyone else except me as her boss. She's never had that dual loyalty thing, which I find very weird in the West, that a lot of wives have this dual loyalty to their employer and their husband. And I think it's really unhealthy. It's better to be loyal to someone who loves you and not someone who just pays for your time. Well, I made it sound a little bit like a prostitution thing, but yeah, well, it is what it is. It sounds like what it sounds like. That's how I don't get to determine what it sounds like. Whatever. All right. Drink up, fellas. All right. So the basics of budgeting. Now, I wouldn't have been able to get all that stuff done if I hadn't kept my finances in check. And that's a lot harder than it sounds. I actually was so bad with my finances when I started, I had to have my bank, which was SunTrust at the time, who has now changed their name by, I don't know, Truist now, I think. I sound like an old dude, like, oh yeah, back when we used to wear onions on our belt, back in Shelbyville. It was the fashion at the time. Yeah, back when SunTrust existed. Yeah, well, here's another old bank name, Wachovia. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna sound like an old man. Hey, do you guys remember Mellow Yellow? Anyways, yeah, I was so bad with my money that I had to have my bank account balance texted to me every morning to tell me how much money I had. I was so bad with money. I actually cried and called my dad once and asked for him to deposit money into my account because I had no money for food. I was like actually hungry. I wasn't broke. I was just stupid. I made myself broke. I had money. I had income. I didn't have money, but I did have income. It was very embarrassing. But hitting rock bottom is a great place to bounce back up. And that humiliation, if you remember my Christianity video, humiliation is a necessary step towards self-transformation. There's always humiliation, which is why whenever someone's humiliated for their poor performance, I just like really just mush their faces in it. I mean, in as friendly a way as possible, but there's no friendly way to humiliate someone. It's part of the growing process. What you do is you act real gruff about it, and then when they've succeeded, then you like, yes, I knew you could do it. They never believe it, but it's nice to say. Anyways, I'm ranting on. You want to track your critical numbers. So what I'm showing you right now is a spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet just has a balance, a starting balance. And then you put your change here, your debit or your credit. So your debits will be negative numbers. And all this next cell below your balance is the cell above it plus the cell to the left of it. And you could just pull that down. So every cell in column C right now is just the cell above it plus the cell to the left of it. That's it. That's all it says. And you put the date on. All right. It's optional. Like if I'm just doing a scratch sheet, like where I'm literally tracking just tens of dollars, then I don't put a date on it. But if it's a serious budget tracker, then I put a date on it. All right. And then I have my mortgages, my paycheck, especially if I'm doing projections, right? So this was a projection at the time. I made this on November 27th, 2023, to figure out how much money I would have because I had a couple of different things coming in. I had a big tax bill from Maryland. Thanks, Maryland. Yeah, whatever. And then I had a $5,000 loan I have to pay back at some point. I think it's somewhere in here. It might be lower down, but oh, it's this yellow cell. I see. Yeah, I think. I don't know what that is. I think it might be a New Balance. Anyways, it's just a spreadsheet. It's just adding and subtracting. So it's the most bare bones basic, but it's really important for just managing your household finances, right? And I do this also by account. So I have my farm finances are on the right here. I got a debit because I sold the lamb for 125. I spent 187 on a gate and a mineral cube. I spent a 531 on an incubator, so on and so forth. I need to add a few numbers in there because we sold some chicks lately. But yes, this is just pure tracking. So basics of budgeting. If you want to improve on something, you have to measure it. This goes for if you're trying to lose weight, you got to measure your calories in. If you want to save money, you're going to need to measure your money in and your money out. It's very painful to do this, by the way. This is why people use credit cards and they just try to ignore it. Like a credit card is like sweeping it under the rug. A lot of people just use it as a psychological security blanket to avoid thinking about their money and how broke they are. Please do think about how broke you are. You need that humiliation to grow. Trust me. All right. Once we swallowed that pill, now we can go on to financial decision making. So I actually have a spreadsheet, and I wonder if I can bring it up. Let me. If I don't break the internet. There we go. So this is my financial spreadsheet. I did two scenarios here where I have, okay, let's say a master electrician in Maryland, which is an electrician level 3, or a journeyman electrician in Tennessee, which is an electrician level 2. And who's going to do better, right? And I picked Nashville as well. So it wasn't like I was doing some crappy part of Tennessee. This is Nashville. So you're out there cruising for chicks. Nashville, Tennessee is the bachelorette party capital of the world. So if you're single and you're ready to mingle, go to Nashville. Trust me, these girls are great. Anyways, you will get yourself in trouble. So don't do that, but feel free to do that. Okay. Or an electrician in Bethesda, Maryland, right? So in other words, I thought of a person who is going to get promoted in Maryland, or they could just take a lateral move go to Tennessee and keep their current job level, right? And I decided to measure what would be the difference. So the guy in Maryland is making 83,000, which is nice. That's pretty good actually. And the person in Tennessee is making 64,000, which is also pretty good. That's my first starting salary was 64. Now obviously inflation, blah blah blah. Yeah. All right. So that's their salaries, right? I think I put the wrong number in here at some point for some reason. But anyway, yes, it's pretty similar numbers. Okay. I put in a potential bonus, which I got off of salary.com. I put their income taxes actually. So by the way, the key down here is all of these tabs. All these numbers come from some crazy tabs. So let me show you my income tax tab. There we go, taxes. That's not as crazy, I remember it being. Yeah, so I ran their salaries and their location through ADP. There's a ADP resources, tools, calculators, salary dash paycheck, or salary, yeah, dash. Salary dash paycheck dash calculator.aspx. This will give you an estimated pay stub. And that pay stub is what you can use to know what you're actually going to make and take home. Now, the thing about it is that Tennessee, job number 2 here, job number 2 doesn't have any income tax in Tennessee, nor does it have local tax. It's got high sales tax, but that's not going to show up in this unless you do some real details. But I mean, just don't buy stuff, I guess. I mean, Maryland has sales tax too, so it kind of comes out in the wash. But you can see here that Maryland boy is getting taxed like double Nashville guy, right? So Maryland guy is getting. Oh wait, that's the living specs of the houses. All right, that's not even there. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So let me zoom in on this. Look at this. Income taxes. Boom. Salary. My lord. My Lanta. Look at that. $21,870. This electrician is paying in taxes in Maryland. That's what the pay stub said. That's not what I said. That's what the pay stub said. Whereas in Nashville, because he's not paying local and state tax, like state tax in Maryland is about 2.5%, and local taxes are around like maybe 2.5, 3%. Depends on which county you're in, right? I can totally believe that, right? Like just off the back of the napkin. So let's just say it's 6%. So 0.06 times 83,000, right? That's $5,000 right there. And then the fact that he's making more income as well. So that's how that came out. I mean, there's also the other taxes, right? So let's take a look at the breakdown here. So there's the federal, which is 3 times as high because it's the new tax bracket. State, non-existent, right? Local, non-existent for the Tennessee guy. Social Security, that's pretty linear, right? 5,000 versus 4,000. Medicare, not a big deal, right? Total tax. So really, the federal and the state really wiped this guy out, right? Like he's paying a federal income tax rate about 12, or Maryland man is paying a federal income tax rate about 12%, which is triple, a little less than triple what Tennessee guy is paying. And that's not even counting the state and local taxes. There's also living situation, right? So I put a mortgage in. I just grabbed I grabbed a case study house. So here's a Zillow house. So I go into pretty good detail, by the way. This is the kind of decision making that I do before I make a major lifestyle change, like change job, change locality, all this stuff. I know it's like a little nuts, this level of detail, but it's kind of what it takes because this is money coming out of your pocket. I mean, you'd probably think about it. If you had a burrito that was $400 versus $5, you'd probably want to do the math on that and like check, right? Well, $400 is nothing in this calculation. If you're off by $400, you just might have $400 just flying out of your pocket. So if you're going to overpay for your lifestyle, why would you? If you wouldn't overpay for a burrito, why would you overpay for your lifestyle? Right? It's money is money. So get smart, get wise with it. I put everything in here. I actually looked up the rate, like the average rate for gas and electricity usage in Maryland. I used to live there. It is actually insane. Like water, $80. Yeah, that's about right. $67 for internet. It's actually the same as it is in Tennessee. So internet's the same cost, but my water bill is like $30 a month, whereas in Maryland it's 80. And I've lived in both places. Electricity and gas for Maryland, $150. That's minimum. Like I've had $400 bills because I had a natural gas heater, and it was a really harsh winter. All right, so it's nuts, which is why I have a wood burning fireplace now. Right. So, anyways, Like, this is the level of detail you kind of have to go to. So don't complain, okay? Don't complain. I love how guys will complain. Like, oh, that's hard. It's like, yeah, but you want a wife and a family, right? It's like, yeah, I guess I do. It's like, it's hard work being a husband. It's not an easy job being a husband. It's not just go to work and then come home and then everything's done. That's the boomer fantasy, and that fell apart. So stop living in the boomer fantasy, okay? All right? You're a millennial or even a Gen Zer. Get out of the boomer mindset and just get ready for the new world and adapt, overcome, all that stuff. And I'm here to help you. I think to get out of the habit of eating nice. All right, so this is how I quantify 2 different scenarios. I'll do a more detailed video on how I do this process because it is important, but you've got the gist of it. This spreadsheet has got tons of glitches in it, unfortunately, because it's a bit of I would add features over on top of each other, and it just turned into a real mess. And what do they call it? Sprawl. Yes, the spreadsheet sprawled out. But anyways, what you're trying to do is just quantify the parameters that are important to your decisions. Okay. All right. So next, household financial strategies. All right. So you need to have accounts for things. So you'll have so whenever you're doing actual accounting, I didn't mention this in why I'm qualified to talk to you guys. My dad's a CPA, and I worked for him for about 10 years as a data entry assistant, I guess. You know, the punk work, you know? He paid me like $10 an hour to sit there, and which is a lot of money back when I was young, to sit and enter data for personal taxes as well as for business accounting. So I got to see the finances, like all the financial ins and outs of several businesses, and your household should run like a business. Okay, you should have accounts for things. Accounts are like entertainment, maintenance. I have a bunch of accounts here, like mortgage and utilities. So those are your baseline household stuff. Your food, right? Your transport, right? Your entertainment, your medical, your loan paybacks, that sort of stuff. That kind of thing should be tracked, and you should see. So what I have in this graph right here to the right is I show the monthly baseline. So that's your budget, like what you've budgeted. You're measuring your excesses. So here, entertainment, there was a big excess. You better explain that. Like if that was if you were your own employee, like if you had an employee that showed up with a high expense here in entertainment, a bunch of in excess, you'd want them to explain it, right? Medical, that's an emergency. It looks like there was an emergency expense there. So you'll see that your baseline here was about 12, and you're double that easily because of these excesses. Now, the emergency was a good part of it. It was about almost half, but the other half could have been avoided, you know, as excesses. If you start measuring the types of expenses you have, you're going to start to see where you can strategize for improvement, right? That's the whole point of putting them into different buckets. So you have your usual, your usual expenses. They have a certain category. Track those categories. Keep them tracked in your spreadsheet. There are some financial apps as well, like my credit card app actually tells you what kind of expense it is, although it's not that accurate. So you're going to have to go in there and manually do it anyway. So just manually keep track of your expenses and make sure it tracks with your bank account, because your bank account statement will tell you all the ins and outs of it, all the incomes and outcomes, as well as your credit card. Make sure everything matches. Okay. So once you've tracked everything, okay, you need to check if you're on goal, if you're excess or below target, and you need to explain that to yourself and your wife. Your partner needs to know what's going on. So part of being a husband is making your wife feel like the house is being managed properly and that she's safe. Because if she doesn't feel like the house is being managed properly, she'll start to nag you. Nagging is as a result of her not feeling assured that you're in control. If you could show her that you're in control, and not only that you're better at being in control than she is, she'll get off your butt. Okay. This is how to prevent your wife from nagging you. Actually, that's kind of true. In a weird way, all of this financial stuff now I'm obsessed with it. I mean, in a weird way, it could be a way to just keep your wife off your butt, which is not a bad reason, really. I would kind of respect it. But you need to explain to your wife what's going on, because this motivates her to not spend so much money. If you're like, hey, we're almost done with this loan, and once we pay off this loan, right, if you keep this up, where do you end up, right? Because the future the projection to future performance, that's your carrot, right? That's the thing that you're chasing. That's what you want. And if you could show her, hey, if we keep this up for a year, we will have paid off our student loans and we'll be making like $800 more a month effectively, which is the equivalent of a $10,000 a year raise at my job. So if we can just keep on budget for 1 year, it'll be like I got a $10,000 raise at my job, minus taxes too, right? So this is the kind of stuff that helps you stay in the fight and not languish, right? You got to count what you're doing. You got to put it into bins. You got to get buy-in with the rest of your family and let them know that you're the man and you got this. And also you did way more math than they would ever physically feel comfortable doing. So they just leave you to it. Like, okay, hubby said no more trips to, I don't know where women shop. Kohl's still open. I'm so old. All right. Let's get on to career and money philosophy, right? So I wanted to include this because this was adorable. In 2014 or so, or like 2015, I made this tier list of financial goals and then what we'd buy. So if I only owed $50,000 in student loan debt and car debt, so all my loan and car together, less than 50,000, which is and we're making a decent profit a month, we could buy a console, not a game console, but my wife wanted some furniture. We got $200 set aside for bar stools. I still own those bar stools, although my cats are the ones that sit on them, but I still own it. This is the one I really wanted, the espresso machine. I got the Burville. Oh no, I forgot it's like BS 870 XL or something like that. It's a really nice like grinder and espresso machine in one. I still have it. I need to fix the solenoid valve in it though. It's kind of gone off. But yeah, I set a little goal. If I could get my outstanding debt down to 50 grand, I get to buy this crap guilt-free. Planned it out, budgeted out. It's feeling good. Okay, so that's the set of fun budget aside. Let's go to the first point though. Have your calculations ready so you can act swiftly. This thing right here, your decision-making matrix, is so you can change numbers rapidly in your calculations and then make a decision fast. So I will give you a couple of anecdotes. The way I bought my first house was I knew exactly what kind of house I wanted. Another role that you have as the man of the house is that you're decisive. You know what you want. Women don't really know what they want. You could show them a new option and they're going to like lose their minds and not know what to do. If you give them too many decisions to make, I find that ladies don't like making decisions. They prefer to make choices. A choice is all personal preference. A decision is like, this has major gravity to it. So because she doesn't want to do it and because you're, more interested in it, you as the man of the house are going to make decisions. Have your decisions ready to go. So as soon as the house I wanted went on the market and I knew exactly what kind of house I wanted for how much, I made an offer like within an hour. I'm always aggressive. I'm always swift. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly how much money I have. I know exactly what I can afford. Boom. And I've been doing research on different houses and the history of the area and the projections of the area, right? A lot of Saturday mornings I would spend listening to the birds chirping outside and I'd be inside clicky-clacking at my computer trying to figure out what I could afford and what I wanted. And because of that, I got my first house. I think the list price was $260 and I think I sold it for $310 or $320 3 or 4 years later. We had a roommate too, so I had 2 roommates for a while. So we get like $500 per roommate. So they're basically paying my mortgage at that point. So I was living free. I just had to deal with roommates, it kind of sucked, but we did it for a few years. So we got over that hump. I mean, that was a good amount of money. I think it was like $30,000, $40,000 extra throughout the course of my ownership of that house that I got just for having roommates, plus the appreciation on the house. So that it put me in a good position to then buy another house. I take the sort of Donaldo Trumpo advice of always negotiate from a position of power. So what I did when I bought my second house is I still owned my first house. I was still renting out rooms there. I went and lived I wanted to get away from my roommates, so I actually just lived in an apartment. It's not the most financially sound decision, but I could afford it, and me and my wife needed it. But that also meant that I could sell my house at my own pace. So I could sell the old house at my own pace. I'm living in an apartment. I don't care. It gets sold. My timing is nothing to me. I'm taking the best offer I can get, and I'm ready to wait for it. Despite my realtor, freaking out, as realtors do. They want to sell the house quickly, right? They don't care if you get an extra few percent on it. What they're trying to do is they're trying to push that house off, get their commission. They're not trying to make a little bit extra money. They just want to get the baseline money and then move on, right? But I don't want to move on. I want those extra percents. Those percents are a lot to me. It's only a couple $100 to the realtor, but it's tens of thousands for me. So I was able to hang in there. I didn't have any timing. So then I just chilled out my apartment for a few more months while I collected more data on where I want to live next. I then bought my next house for about, oh man, I want to say like 370 was my offer. Might have been 360. Well, the thing is, that was right before the old pandemic hit, right? And house prices started going insane. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go and I want to move to Tennessee. So I got clearance from my employer. Again, I did research. I know exactly where I want to move. Clearance from my employer. I'd paid $360 for this house, and I sold it for $425 cash. The person paid cash. It was great. So boom, account settled. I don't have to deal with any of this. They didn't have to. So when someone pays cash, right? And this was a Hispanic family, so it was probably like 5 dudes in the family who all worked and saved up money, in whatever way they want. Like, respect, okay, whatever you want to say about immigrants, Hispanic immigrants, man, they're serious. They're like us Asians, where it's like we'll sleep 6 men to a room in some apartment in the middle of the city to work a job at a factory. And despite the fact that we're making far less than some white collar person, we're pulling in a lot more savings, and we're having a good time. I don't know, simple pleasures. And we send the money home. But anyways, these people bought it cash, which meant they didn't have to clear it with a bank, which was great. It made dealing. It was pretty much they slapped money on the table. They said, "Yeah, we'll buy it," and then I said, "Yeah, I'll sell it," and that was it. I don't think I ever met them. That's a shame. I would like to have met them. It's pretty cool. But I was out of state because I was in Tennessee, looking for my next house. I managed to grab that up for about $380. So I paid about the same amount for my third house as I did for my second house. Despite the fact that time had changed, I'm now moving geography, and now my house, its Z estimate is like $570,000. So it's appreciated by about 190 grand. I don't think that number's real. First off, I think this number's a bunch of BS, but because the bubble's gonna pop soon. But I got in on time. I was able to act swiftly. So that was a big rant. I apologize. I hope you don't mind. I'm proud of it, but I'm not like I'm so smart. It's basically I got really lucky, but every time I was lucky, you have to have the eye to see that you're lucky, right? And the only way you can do that is if you know what you want and you know what good fortune is, and then you can act on it quickly. Because luck is like a beautiful lady's glance. If you duck out and you break eye contact for a second, she loses interest and Lady Luck moves on, Okay. Live like you are poor until you are rich. I mentioned before that guys like me will sleep 6 to a bedroom to make money and then send that back to our family. You better believe it. When you're first starting out, sure. We're not living by ourselves in an apartment if we can help it. I think my first apartment, I was actually pretty lucky because I did live alone, but it was like an $800 a month basement crap hole. It wasn't a crap hole. It's all about your neighbors, right? You'd rather be the poorest person on a rich block than the richest person on a poor block. Let me tell you that. But when I bought a house, I immediately had roommates. The first thing I did when I bought a house was I cleaned the place. My wife cleaned the place mostly. She's really good at cleaning, doing deep cleans. And then I refurbished the basement, which had flood damage and all sorts of other stuff. I refurbished the basement because the basement had its own entrance, so I could advertise it as it's a private apartment it has a shared kitchen upstairs. I was planning on putting a kitchen down there, but I ended up not having enough money, and it didn't seem to matter. But anyways, I lived like I was poor until I was rich. I consider myself fairly rich now. I still think these reward tiers I have on the right. So yeah, the treat yourself. Yeah. Morgan gets 50% share of the rent income. Yep. Road trip massage class for couples if we have 20% principal paid on mortgage, which I'm at about. Yeah. That's too funny. Some of the stuff I did and some of the stuff I didn't do. I never got that vacation to Hawaii. Flights have stayed about the same price, strangely enough, and now I have free nights. So, but we're waiting. Probably the spring, next spring. You know what I mean? Anyways, know what you want ahead of time, but also know what you're capable of, because sometimes the time is not right. And some of the biggest mistakes I've made and the most money I've ever lost was because I acted swiftly before I was ready, before I'd done all the calculations. I made a bad decision. So just because you're acting aggressively and swiftly does not mean you're doing a good job. You need to really know what you're doing. You need to count everything. Like, you should have accountability for everything that flies in and out of your bank account. You should have accountability and visibility over everything that will fly in and out of your bank account if you change living situations from like renting to owning, right? Okay. So let's talk about career. This is one I'm going to be very quick about, but I job hopped, according to boomers, in my career early on. It's not really job hopping, I don't think. I'll let you be the judge. Feel free to put in the comments if I was job hopping. I think my first job, I was there for about 2.5 years. That was at, I'm not going to say the names of the companies, I guess. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm gonna err on the side of caution. Sorry if I'm being weirdly cagey or something. But my first employer, I stayed there for about 2.5 years. My second employer, I was there for about 10 months. Did not like the place. I didn't get along. My third employer, I was there for about 2.5, 3 years. And then my fourth employer, I was there for 6 months. Also did not get along there. I hate it when people lie about the job description. Like, I go there expecting one kind of job and I get another kind of job. And I'm like, this is a career suicide for me, pal, because I'm in software. My career is in software, and I'm like over here doing hardware stuff, which I'm not good at. I'm not trained at. I am pretty autodidactic, so I can figure it out. But I'm losing a year of currency. You know, like I'm losing a year in my software development stuff. So now I'm a year behind all of my peers. So you're destroying my income. So that's the reason why I leave. All right. So 6 months at that place, 12 months in the next place. Then I got a really big break and worked at the next place for about 3 years. And now I'm at the place I'm at now. Every time, there were a couple of times where I increased my income by about 30% by doing that. So pretty much if I got a better offer, I'd take it. If I like the work, right? So aggressive, financially aggressive, you're trying to get money. That's why you work, okay? You work for money. You don't work for companies, you work for money. The company doesn't matter. Like the breach in trust has been made. Companies lay people off like normally now. Companies don't plan very well. So they got to lay you off. Or they just want to make their quarter look good, which is really diabolical. So they'll lay you off and then they'll try to hire you back. All trust is gone. All social regulation is gone. Except the employer I'm at right now is not an American company. They're a Japanese company. I really like working for them. I'll be more loyal to them for sure. But be aggressive with your salary, right? I'm aggressive now, and it's the form of bonuses. So I'm always trying to like say, hey, I did great. Rate me well. Give me a good rating this year. Give me a bonus. Give me them bonuses. And I get some pretty good bonuses. I'm happy. Beneficial. Be beneficial to your employer. Like, you should not be a productivity sink. You should be the go-to guy. You should be you should be the kind of guy who's worth the money that you're making. Like, I think a lot of Hollywood is learning right now that they're not worth the money that they were making. I think a lot of guys in Silicon Valley are realizing right now that they weren't worth the money that they were making. You know, my heart goes out to a lot of them. I think they are worth plenty of money, but just not Silicon Valley money, maybe. And the companies had to let them go. Third thing, charismatic. You need to work on your charisma. People should like working with you. So right now, aggressive means you're working for yourself, like you're working for money. Beneficial means you are trading fair trade here. You are a beneficial person to employ. If they're paying you $5, right, they're going to be making $7. The only reason they pay you is because they can get more money out of your work than your salary is. Like, you should be a net profit for the company. So you're never getting paid what you're worth. You're getting paid what is acceptable, right? Which means there's always an upside, but you have to look for it. Charismatic, it's a people person business. Every job is interpersonal. So you should have charisma. Develop it, work on it. Go to the Carnegie classes or something. I don't know. Go and practice. Go to a bar and just walk up to people and introduce yourself and tell a funny joke or something and do an icebreaker and then talk to them for a bit and listen to them a lot. Do a lot of listening. It's good for developing patience anyway. Speaking of developing, you should always be developing. Every job you have is a training exercise. You should have a curriculum of things you want to learn that are going to further your career that your job is going to give you. That way you know which projects you should be on and which projects you should avoid. Because some projects are going to be busy work where you're just working for the company, making them money. That's fine. But you're trying to get experience in the meantime, right? You're trying to get financially beneficial experience. Like if you're working as a Linux sysadmin doing Linux admin stuff, maybe your job will help you get the CCNA certification, which was going to increase your salary by a lot. It's a hard certification. You got to be a real pro. So maybe getting into the networking side of your Linux admin job, volunteering for that kind of crappy job in there. Although his extra work is going to pay off in the meantime, like in a later date, right? So, and finally, you want to have an exit strategy. You always need an exit strategy, not just from your current job, but from your career. You always need to know when you can walk away because, as I said before, you need to always negotiate from a position of power, okay? You should negotiate from a position of power, and the most powerful thing you could do in a negotiation is just walk away. And if you can do that, you've got an exit strategy. You should have an exit strategy. My exit strategy right now is that if I pay off my mortgage, I can pretty much live as a pig farmer. And I keep the same lifestyle I got now, right? Because it's all gravy, okay? That's my exit strategy. All right. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't thank you guys enough. Whoever makes it through these videos, I should thank you really up front. Make a good habit of that. I appreciate it. It's nice to be able to give back. Hope you get something out of it. Feel free to comment. I got to be better about reading my comments. I'm so sorry for anybody who felt ignored. Thank you again. God bless. Go make some money. Go have a strategy. If there's some advice that you want, feel free to put in the comments. I might make a video about it. You know, we'll see. All right. All right. You everybody have a good one. Okay. Bye-bye.